We're going after Dom, Philip. Dear Bud, we laid to rest the very night the Groovers were born. So I'm talking about bonds and beers and the five of us, Philip, traveling down that long, lonesome highway and talking about us reliving the greatest chapter in Groover history. Don't that mean something to you?
Well, Elliot Ness had done it, the Untouchables had won it, and Dunbar was dancing with the wolves. The postman defeated the general, while the mariners swam around that water world. We're talking Costner, tin cup to Silverado, talking Costner, Bodyguard and Fandango. Robin Hood is making a rich pay, going off the board on draft day, talking swing vote, Wyatt Earp and JFK. Okay.
All right. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing well as you can be, with just a whole dumpster fire of 2021. I thought we were done with years of dumpster fire.
It don't stop there, baby.
It don't stop there, you know. So yeah, you know, we're living here. For those of us who don't know, we're coming from Ontario, which is under new stay-at-home orders, which are somehow
same as
different
the old orders.
Yeah, same as this new year, not new stay-at-home sanctions. So yeah, we're living in a bad time for COVID, and it's a delight to just get to take your mind off it with some chaos. So I'm delighted to be chatting and going on a road trip here with Kevin and the crew today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, pretty stoked. Our first episode was launched last month, and some people listened to it.
We had more than just us and our significant others listen to it.
Yeah.
So
a few Italian Kevin Costner fan sites subscribed early, which I really love.
I think it's an Italian Kevin Costner fashion tribute Instagram page that has followed us and has been chiming in. So I can't remember what they're called right now, but thanks to them. Yeah,
I love, you know, someone else recognizing Costner for the icon he is. But seriously, thanks to everyone who listened to our first episode. It was a blast. It's been a blast to hear people giving us feedback. We'd love more of your feedback. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter. The handle is at Talkin Costner for both of them. No G. Yeah, we'd love to keep talking Costner with you.
Yeah, and since we're rookies, the feedback is very much welcome. It helps let us know what you like, what you don't like, and
how wrong we are on our takes about Malibu Hot Summer.
Please let us know how wrong we are on our hot or cold takes about Costner, and I am delighted that we have, I think, to at least 50 people given a real renaissance to Malibu Hot Summer. I think Trauma Pictures owes us some kind of plaque for any of the legal or illegal streams that we have encouraged people.
Yeah, I definitely didn't pay for it, so I don't know how much they owe us.
Hard to get those VHS copies, but yeah, it was great to hear feedback and stuff. Cam, what have you been? Just to go off Costner for a second, what else have you been watching lately? What movies or TV shows? What have you been into? Especially as we're staying at home, there's a lot of time for the screen time.
Yeah. What have I watched? Earlier this week, I started getting back into. I've always been a big fan of Westerns, and I think it's because we have Silverado coming up. That I've wanted to watch some old classic Westerns. And I just watched One-Eyed Jacks, which is the Marlon Brando Western that he directed. And it's
I don't know that.
Yeah, it's really good. Brando really does not fit in a Western very well. And it's like a real classic Western too. So it's not like, I mean, there are interesting things it does.
That kind of surprises me a little.
Yeah. And Carl Malden, who played like Mitch in Streetcar Named Desire, is like the villain bad sheriff who like swindled.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Reunion.
It's it was really great. I really liked it. And I also just watched connection to this movie, a movie called The Beast or The Beast of War, which is a movie that Kevin Reynolds, the director of this film, directed after in late 80s. That is about Russian tankers in Afghanistan during that war. And it's got George Zunza. It's got Stephen Baldwin. And it's got Jason Patrick. Jason Patrick is like the leading man that wasn't. Like for a short time, he's really great. But where's Jason Patrick at these days?
Jason Patrick, of the Lost Boys. He's in Geronimo. I distinctly remember him from Speed 2.
Yeah, exactly. That was I feel like if we're doing a Jason Patrick episode podcast, like that's where we're like, this might be his Waterworld.
Once we get the Patreon network up, I'm looking up his filmography. He's still doing stuff. He's got named characters all the way up. But I'm saying
in that time, he was damn near A-list.
Yeah, and again, I think that's what'll be interesting in this as we go along. We're going to be talking about why Costner, why we think he's so great, and why obviously he achieved a level of success and critical acclaim, because there's lots of, especially in the 80s, even in this film, there are young, handsome, ingenue, white leading male to this day, that's still most of what we see,
standard.
Especially in the 80s, that's all we see. But what made Costner stand out, and so that's an interesting thing to think about, is what makes a Costner not a Jason Patrick and vice versa. I'm pretty interested to keep talking about that. So and I really wanted to share that a movie that I watched this week that I have never watched except when I was a kid. I saw the opening scene and it scared the hell out of me. I watched Cliffhanger this week.
Oh yeah,
because it's on Netflix. Have you seen Cliffhanger?
Oh yeah, I watched it maybe like 2 years ago while working out. It was a great workout movie.
That is a great workout movie. They should play that in all rock climbing gyms.
I think that scene of like the amount it was parodied of like the glove slipping off the hand was
Ace Ventura 2 does it. A bunch of movies
like
did it.
In Mission Impossible, like the coming down from the roof bank vault robbery scene, like that was like the next version of that.
Yes.
Cinematic action moment that is filled with suspense that just gets parodied so much. I would do a Patreon review of Cliffhanger. I've always heard John Lithgow is a great, maybe not great, but also great bad guy in it, with an accent that just goes all over the place. And again, I just in rewatching this, and of course we watched Days of Thunder as a pilot before we started this podcast, another Michael Rooker 1980s, where Rooker, I am just so primed to think, even with Guardians of the Galaxy, to think of Michael Rooker as a bad guy, that as I'm watching this movie, I'm like waiting for basically 2/3 of the movie. I'm like, he's with the bad guys, right? Like it's Michael Rooker. He's got to be, but he's not. He's just a good guy. He's a good guy with some hurt feelings. Maybe blames Sly the way he shouldn't, but a very fun. His wife died.
Movie. It was just his girlfriend.
Oh, okay. Well, then what's he complaining about?
He had kind of like just met that girl, but not that I know rip Sarah, but Cliffhanger. I just really, really enjoyed that movie as well. And again, to connect it back to Costner, a movie that probably would be totally ridiculous and B movie, but when you have a leading man like Sylvester Stallone, or when you have somebody with the chops and the magnetic charisma like a Stallone or a Costner, you can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. And so that movie really works because Stallone is just great.
But today we're talking 1985 Fandango.
We're going on a road trip. We're going to learn about ourselves. We're going to learn about love,
the future,
war,
destiny,
marriage, regrets, the Vietnam, the draft, and we're going to find out that maybe it was our friends all along the way that made the difference. But let's get into it. Let's talk about Fandango. Let's start with some stats.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with our key players. Obviously, we have Kevin Costner. He's in this movie.
Leading man is Gardner.
Big year for him, 1985. 1985, also a very big year for this actor, Judd Nelson, who also did Breakfast Club this year and St. Elmo's Fire. So arguably a bigger year than Kevin Costner. We got Sam Robards.
A very versatile year for Judd Nelson between Bender and Phillip.
Yeah. His St. Elmo's Fire character is kind of similar to this.
Yeah. And I think of this, we'll talk about some other movie like connections, but he's a little more the Anthony Michael Hall of this movie. I can't remember what his name is from Breakfast Club. So interesting to see Judd Nelson flexing his acting versatility here in 1985.
Yeah, well, I would debate how well he flexes it.
Flexing can, I can flex. Doesn't mean I'm.
We'll get into it. So Sam Robards is also in it, who's kind of had a career mostly as a TV actor after this, but he's in American Beauty. He's in AI. He's in Casualties of War. Chuck Bush, Susie Amos, Marvin McIntyre, and Glenn Headley, who I also love in a small early part, but she went on to have a great career. She's in like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Dick Tracy, Mr. Holland's Opus. It is directed and written by Kevin Reynolds. It's his first film. Also his debut and the beginning of a beautiful friendship between him and Kevin Costner, who went on to work on Robin Hood together, Waterworld, Hatfields and McCoys.
He was, I think he was a unit producer or a DOP on Dances with Wolves.
Yeah,
well.
I think
he was a second unit director and a set advisor for Dances.
Yeah,
with
I think he kind of helped with the Big Buffalo scene. I think that was kind of what. He took under his
which makes sense because without getting too deep into it, that makes sense because there's some great stunts in this movie. There are some great set pieces and stunts. So it makes sense that later he would go on to do some of those in Dances with Wolves and movies like Waterworld and Robin Hood, which are full of those.
And then it is finally produced by Steven Spielberg and Amblin Entertainment.
Though you wouldn't know it.
Because somebody's name is missing from the credits of this movie.
Somebody was not happy. We'll talk about it a little more, but Steven Spielberg was underwhelmed with how this movie turned out and actually took his name off of the film. And that obviously, when you have Steven Spielberg and then
you don't have him
out and you don't have him when it does stop there, that's going to have some dire repercussions on your film.
Yeah. When Spielberg sees the final edit and goes, "That's a napes for me, dog." That's not good.
That's right. So, we'll talk maybe as we wrap about, what we think how that affected the legacy and the distribution and how this could have looked. But it was, so Spielberg did, this was originally a student film called Proof that Kevin Reynolds did when he was at USC, I believe. Spielberg saw this film, loved it, and decided to fund and essentially produce. It's even funny that they say, even on the wiki, it says he funded it. Well, that means you're a producer. And turn this into a big budget Hollywood film. Yeah.
It was filmed in 1983 and then released in a grand total of 27 theaters in 1985.
Apparently a grand total of maybe 7 or 8 days. Quentin Tarantino is quoted as saying he loves this movie. He thinks it's one of the best directorial debuts of all time, if not the greatest directorial debut. And that he said, "I saw it 5 times and it was only out for a week." What does that tell you? So Quentin loved it. Yeah.
What all I'll say to Quentin Tarantino is I think his directorial debut might put this one to shame. Like, I don't know. I'm no film critic, but I think Reservoir Dogs might be better than Fandango.
Well, and we'll let our audience be the judge of that. And so obviously,
hit us on Twitter what you think.
Yeah, exactly. This was a film that Kevin Reynolds apparently originally the school that they're set at, which I believe is in the film here, it's the University of Texas. it originally was going to be set in Baylor University, but he rewrote that because I guess his father was the president of Baylor at the time and didn't want to get his dad in trouble because essentially the first scene in this movie is like Animal House and doesn't reflect super well on their students, but just a little interesting tidbit there that it comes a little bit from Kevin Reynolds' life, and there were mostly recast when they made this version, although Marvin J. McIntyre, who we'll see later in the film as a pilot, was in the original version and would actually go on to do some other things in Hollywood.
And I'll say the original short film is on YouTube. You can watch it. It's like 26 minutes long, and it's that portion of the movie is just a shot for shot remake. Yes. Basically, it's almost the exact same except different actors, and obviously much greater production value. This movie had a budget of $7 million. It had a banner weekend on its opening weekend. It made $55,000 that weekend, and the worldwide total gross of this movie, $92,000.
So sad. Came in under six figures. If you could have just got that 8, you might at least have that pride point.
And, we can talk about later whether we think this movie deserves better, but this might be the worst box office showing of a Kevin Costner movie.
I would say, not counting our batch
in gross, and not counting. Not counting some of the first 9, but
not counting Shadows Run Black and Malibu Hot Summer. Even though
although I think they might have been able to rub $92,000 together. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe in the re-release, maybe in the VHS and DVD re-releases. Tough to say, but but certainly, as we'll get into it, this film is night and day compared to those films, and we'll talk about why.
The movie has a 6.8 on IMDb, a 50% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 70% audience score. So people do like this movie. It's got a cult following.
Yeah.
It's, it exists, and I'm glad it does.
Yeah. I think this is. Has been at least, especially compared to the first 9, with the, of course, exception of The Big Chill. This was the first chance. I say chance, of course, for audiences, a much wider audience to meet and get to know this young actor named Kevin Costner. And of course, they didn't get too much of a chance because its distribution was the legs were cut out from under it. But we will see, I think, as we go through this, a real leap in terms of getting to see Kevin Costner's acting chops, because of course this is his by far his biggest role of any of the films that we did. He was at best a supporting character in films like Testament, and also just in quality of film. We talked about there were a few films where it didn't seem like many people behind the camera had ever been in that position before, and this is not the case. There might be some rough edges on this film, and I think maybe that's what Steven Spielberg didn't like, and maybe wasn't up to his standards. But there's a lot to break down into this film. And so just as a note, of course, we will invite our audience to watch along with us. And so if you plan to watch Fandango, this review will be full of spoilers, as our reviews going forward will be. If you just want to hear us break it down and chat about it, then proceed by all means. But spoilers ahead, of course.
Yeah, the podcast is definitely meant to have you take this journey with us. So month by month,
we're not just a podcast. We're not just a brand. We're a community here.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of like a family. We're like the Juggalos of Kevin Costner, and
we're gonna have a gathering.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned for the newsletters. So we're gonna start our walkthrough right now. So Fandango opens up. We've got Gardner Barnes, played by Kevin Costner, just in a tux with some broken down sunglasses.
Great lead character name.
Gardner Barnes, totally great.
A lot of great
character name.
names.
That could be a Hemingway character for all I know. You know, that's
absolutely. The whole cast has got great names.
It's true. And he's chucking darts at a picture of him and some unnamed lady. Mm-hmm. But all the darts, you'll notice, they are going into Kevin Costner.
They're going on to him. He's not hitting this lady who we should say in the photo is it does clearly seem at this point that this is someone that he at some point has been in a relationship with. It's a little couple looking kind of photo, but he's throwing darts into his own head. And
then we got Judd Nelson breaking down the door saying he's coming. There's going to be some kind of surprise party. We see they're at a kegger. I love these moments that happen in film where you can tell somebody just beefed it, like fell down when he hops on the coffee table and it just slips off.
I thought that is either some expert Grotowski physical or that was just a real slip.
He had a bruise for sure on that one, but he kept it rolling and it works great.
If we ever have categories that expand outside the costume universe, I would say there's a couple of other great unintentional slips in movie history. The two I'm thinking of are one in the movie Scrooged, when Bill Murray is walking out of the restaurant after seeing a ghost. He takes this incredible spill, but holds it and keeps walking out, and apparently that was unintentional. The other being in the movie Splash with Tom Hanks. There's a scene where John Candy is playing squash and he gets nailed right in the face and hits the ground like a ton of bricks. And apparently that was also unscripted. So Kevin, if you're listening and that was scripted and you want credit for a great stunt, then by all means, please come on and be a guest on our next episode.
Get after us.
Yeah.
We want to set the record straight with you personally on this podcast.
That's right.
So they're waiting for somebody.
And it's clearly a graduation party.
It's a graduation party. They're having a kegger. It's frat house. And who walks in but Phil's parents, who's Judd Nelson's.
There are definitely Judd Apatow vibes in this.
I think Judd Apatow has seen this movie. But Judd Nelson's character, who is Phil, who's kind of the like uptight, nerdy one. His parents come in and they open the door and it's a bunch of people mooning them and he's all embarrassed. Phil's a loser is the point. He's an uptight loser. We get that vibe. And then
he's a bit of a weenie, as we'll learn as this movie goes on.
And then who comes in is Kenneth, played by Sam Robards. And the reason that they are surprising him, it seems, is he is about to have like a bachelor party. He's about to get married.
Yeah. I think that the wedding is like around the corner, essentially. And this is the last chance as a frat house. This is their last party. So it's also
both a graduation and it's
a bachelor party.
And a bachelor party. And he kind of announces to the group, I called it off. We should first say this movie's set in 1971 as well. Yeah. It's released in 85, but set in 71. He's called it off because he has just gotten his draft notice that because he has graduated for university, he can no longer defer his draft notice. Mm-hmm. He's got to go. So he's like, I called off the wedding. And who's stoked about this? Our big old dirtbag, Gardner Barnes. He's like, hey, I got Gardner one too. I got mine too. We'll go together. But you'll know, Gardner Barnes didn't get his because he graduated. He got his because he took 3 years and still hasn't graduated.
He hadn't done anything, basically. And so they said, you have had no academic advancement in 3 years, so you can no longer defer the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Essentially what's interesting as we're coming in here is we're essentially seeing, this is Kevin Costner as Van Wilder. He's the guy who's been hanging out. He's the smooth talking, cool, college guy who's essentially going nowhere, but is like can talk his way into anything. This is Costner as Van Wilder.
And this just sparks Gardner to go, we're going on one last road trip. Time for, what is it? A Fandango. The title of the movie.
Not the WWE wrestler who is currently languishing away in NXT in a tag team. Not that Fandango.
Not the member of the Fashion Police. I think we saw his debut, didn't we? Fandango?
I think we did after WrestleMania. That was at Toronto night. Yeah. And
little trivia on WWE.
Little trivia just on our lives, watching a lot of wrestling, which I think most people listening to this probably know that. And we should say, of course, then the other people in that we do get to meet briefly, or rather that Phil's parents meet briefly as part of this crew, the Groovers, is Lester, who's played by Brian Sezak, who is passed out virtually the whole film.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that. And Dorman, who is this sort of big, gentle, giant seminary student who's been training to be a minister. He's played by Chuck Bush. And apparently he was an absolute, just like a find, like an everyday find. He worked at a 7-Eleven. He had never done acting before, had never like had a script before.
Yeah. They needed a big guy in the group because he carries around Lester, who's passed out the whole movie. So like we need a guy who could look like he wouldn't mind just carrying around this skinny, passed out dork.
Yeah, and I think overall for basically a walk-on first-time acting gig, Chuck Bush does really well. Yeah, this is exactly what this character needs to be, and we'll see. He doesn't seem like a non-entity in this film. He doesn't get explored to the depths of the other three, but I really enjoyed Dorman in this film.
Yep, me too. So we see then a montage of them drinking and driving, a lot of drinking and driving.
Yeah,
this montage is I guess it's Texas, it's wide open roads.
It's 1971 but I don't know. Was drinking and driving yet to be understood as just like an absolute abhorrent thing in 1985 either? Because there's certainly no indication, even as a movie from 1985, that this isn't anything but a good old time drinking
around. This is a piss up, baby. This is what you do.
Yeah. So
this is the Groovers at their peak.
Yeah, this is what we're looking at. And I just got to say, kind of right off the bat, I could immediately see, and again, we have the bell curve of the last few movies that we watched, most of which were absolute stinkers. Coal, not gems, as we said. But right away, just as the kind of opening credits start rolling in this scene where they start on the road trip, the cinematography is great. The director of photography, the direction itself, I can see right away, just in the shot composition, in the way that this movie just starts rolling with a great soundtrack. You can see just some excellent direction from Kevin Reynolds right off the bat, both setting the tone for the movie, making it stylish and interesting, and also setting up some plot points that we'll come back to later.
Yeah, totally. So I guess they drove all night. It's weird because they leave at night and then all the montage is them driving during the day. It's kind of questionable how much time has gone by, but
yeah, that is not clear. But I just also want to note that right away, as Costner takes a leak by the side of the road, I'm already thinking, and this would only grow as this movie goes on, I'm already thinking that this could be a prequel to Tin Cup.
For sure.
Because just think that Gardner Barnes is Roy from Tin Cup. And the way that this the plots go, in my head canon, I just think I want to believe that Gardner Barnes just changes his name, gets real good at golf, and becomes Roy McAvoy.
Comes back from Mexico, and yeah,
exactly. He's living down south.
Spoiler. Yeah, it's definitely him, and I think I mentioned it before in the Shadows Run Black thing, of him. That was kind of the first Costner playing kind of dirtbag charm version,
dirtbag Costner.
And that is definitely something he's very good at. I think that's why I alluded to as well. He reminds me of a young Tim Riggins, Taylor Kitsch character in Friday Night Lights, just all full of charm. Just really great. You want to watch him. Very simple, very easy.
And even when he's a dirtbag, there's just something so likable about him.
And he's not mean.
That's exactly right. He's a dick because he's in this moment in the car. He's pressuring Kenneth not to call his now ex-fiance to explain why he called off their wedding, because we find out that he just left a message with his fiance's dad that he was calling off the wedding. And Phil's trying to say well, you should give her a call. Costner's telling him don't bother, but there's still something. What is it about Kevin Costner that just makes him so likable, even when you're being this guy is such an ass? That's just something about the way Costner has a likability factor about him.
And it's it's just a sense of ease to all of his performance. He doesn't push anything. He's just natural and great. So anyways, major plot point, Gardner kind of declares, since we've graduated and we've gotten disengaged and we've gotten drafted, now or never, it's time to go dig up Dom. And everybody kind of knows what this is. It harkens back to a past trip of this Groovers gang where they buried Dom. And Phil.
We don't know who or what Dom is, though.
Yeah. And Phil, who's the weenie, whose car it is, kind of gets in the car and starts driving away. He's like, no, I'm not. You're not driving my car to Mexico. To which Costner's like, well, it's the border of Mexico. It's not in Mexico. It's just, kind of close.
Yeah. And
but
I will say that this was obviously giving me huge Ferris Bueller's Day Off vibes.
Yes, yes.
But we should actually say that Ferris Bueller's Day Off gives Fandango vibes because that actually came out a year later. We're obviously seeing Phil here as the Alan Ruck / Cameron character to Gardner's Ferris Bueller.
Yes, exactly. And I just watched Risky Business as well. And I'm just like, there's something about in 80s movies, just like the car getting ruined. That is just like.
Yeah, that they love that set piece. Yeah, they love that.
They just love it. Oh, like,
crash the car.
This car gets ruined. At any rate, Phil gets peer pressured. They're going to go to Mexico. They're going to take this road trip, dig up Dom. And then we get our first flashback fantasy of Costner with this woman we recognize from the photo. And they're running through a field of flowers and they're in love. And you're like, who's the little softy inside that cool exterior of Gardner Bond?
Inside that hardened exterior.
This is definitely, I think, where like Kevin Reynolds, like I think he's very well equipped in writing, and he's very clever at writing a lot of like the buds, the sentimentality of the, like he is not adept at handling this at all. Like it's just from the get-go, it's like this is a different movie, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what movie it is.
Yeah, it's not this movie, or at least it doesn't have the connective tissue to support. And I can agree more. The flashbacks are definitely the weakest and most out of place points in this movie. It's a valiant attempt at getting to the depth of the character, but I actually think, if you watch this movie back and cut out these flashback scenes, I think Costner, and maybe he didn't know who he had, but Costner's acting is so good that the depth is there.
Yeah.
You don't need these scenes. You don't even need the plot point of knowing he obviously has regrets about a woman.
But it's also already written in the language and the way he talks about women. Like I've never been in love with. I had a woman I cared about. Well, like we already get it. If we don't need to be hit over the head, and we certainly don't need him to. Yeah, we will remember.
Yeah. And if I'm Steven Spielberg, that might be a big point of issue that I have for the Steven Spielberg standards is you don't see that kind. I'm not saying this completely derails the movie. It doesn't by any stretch of the imagination, but you don't see those kind of glaring weaknesses in Spielberg movies. And at this point, this is 1985. And Steven Spielberg has done Jaws, Close Encounters, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T. So he's the standard bearer, and so I do see a little bit of right here where some of those issues could have come.
Yeah. Next, we see Gardner has run out of gas on a dirt road. I love the lines of like.
Dotted line means dirt. I thought it meant shortcut. You know what E means? Do you know what E means? It means empty, douchebag, like your head.
E means empty, douchebag. Like that's Judd Nelson just not being great at acting.
Yeah. We talked about how Costner doesn't push, especially in some scenes that'll come in the back of the car. Judd Nelson
pushes.
He pushes it. He pushes the emotion where Costner kind of lives it a little more. We see,
and maybe it's just miscasting because I love Bender in
absolutely
Breakfast Club. I think he's so good in that movie.
That's a character that's built a little more to have a character that pushes.
That's right? The Gardner Barnes character, right?
That exactly.
Yeah, they've got to push the car. They're lost in the desert. They're pushing the car. This guy, what's the friend? Lester's still passed out in the back.
Lester he's in the back windshield, and they did pick a perfect car because he fits. You almost don't even notice him most of the time.
I didn't notice him the first time I watched it until in the
back windshield of the car.
Yeah, until they got to the skydiving place. I forgot he was in the movie.
Yeah.
They drive by a memorial for the McLean massacre, which we get a bit of foreshadowing about the Vietnam War, where Kenneth is like, could you imagine traveling all this way just to get murdered? And we see kind of Kenneth's resentment of the dad of Debbie that he called. Another great line. I think this is where we see that like Kevin Reynolds is a talent to be fostered. When he said, he calls the dad and says he's calling off the wedding, and his dad says, "I'm behind you all the way, Kenneth."
Yeah, that's what her father said on the phone. You're doing the right thing, Kenneth. I'm behind you all the way. Always been in front of me till then.
I think that's a great line. Like he's behind me when I'm like calling off the wedding, but up until then, totally in front of me. Like,
absolutely. I think the dialogue in this movie is great. Yeah. And I think it's. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we also find out, and I forgot to mention this, that Phil is kind of what do they call it? He's
ROTC. So
ROTC,
So he's been he's been paying.
He's doing officer training, and he's doing
officer training for the military.
He's excited to go to the Vietnam War. He didn't need to be drafted.
He's proud of it, and he has no hesitation about this, and he sees it as it would both gave him an opportunity to go to school, but he also sees it as a duty he takes pride in. And it's kind of fascinating to see a film with the specter of Vietnam very much there in the backdrop, and not taken lightly, but especially it's used in levity at the beginning of this film. It will, of course, gain nuance as the film goes on. But in terms of like the mind, the consciousness of like American cinema, I believe this is pre-Born on the 4th of July.
Pre-Born on the 4th of July, yeah.
And so
pre-Platoon.
That was a pre-Platoon. So yeah, the Vietnam in and of itself as a clear looming villainous specter as a doom, as it should rightly be looked at.
Yeah.
That's not present in American cinema at this time.
No.
But I will say,
well, I mean, like there are like I think Full Metal Jacket's probably out by now. Deer Hunter's obviously out. Coming Home is out. Apocalypse Now has been out, so it's
Apocalypse Now has been out. Yeah. But actually Full Metal Jacket was a couple years away still at this point.
Okay.
So it's just, we're seeing a point in Hollywood where, as a culture, people are starting to ask some different questions about both, military war and the Vietnam War itself, and we do start to see those nuances in this film, not to the degree as we would in something like Born on the 4th of July, but we'll get into it. It does. There's some well-rounded depth that comes into these characters' lives as they look at the looming prospect of their service.
It is also like very effective for that time and place. We see a lot of these movies of like the coming of age and what's next around the corner. And like when what's next around the corner is like, go die. It's like, like in that difference between an Arrested Development of like, I don't want to grow up and I don't want to join the real world. And all my hopes, like you're not, my dreams didn't come true. Like, well, now you've got to go die for your country it does make for that extra added tension, which is really nice. It's kind of refreshing to see a movie that had talked about Vietnam and as it's just a matter of fact of a thing happening that people don't really seem to have much of a cognizant relationship to, which I feel like it is real, like even, like if you talk about the Iraq war or Afghanistan, the average person back in America or Canada is just kind of, it doesn't really affect their lives until like, oh, I guess this does affect my life.
Absolutely.
And interesting to have characters. I don't know how many times I've seen it. And like in like kind of pure Reagan America era, just people openly talking about like wanting to dodge the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Especially at this point. And I think that obviously we weren't there. Neither of us were alive when this movie came out. But I think what's interesting to me about this is that not that I don't enjoy seeing a film commentary on something like the Vietnam War, but it's very much Kevin Reynolds. He roots it in the lives of these characters, so it doesn't become an allegory, or the movie itself is not a commentary on the war, but the war just exists as this specter in the backdrop. That is this movie is all about them thinking back a little bit on their lives, kind of like The Big Chill, but even more so looking ahead to just the question mark or potentially period that's ahead of them of their future. And so what does that look like for them? And so the fact that it's rooted so deeply in the lives of these characters, I think is actually is what makes it work really well and still resonate years later, at least for me watching these characters just sort of like deal with their varying degrees of acceptance or avoidance of what's before them.
Yeah. So right after this, they hear a train coming. They've got a harebrained scheme. They're gonna like lasso the car onto the train and have it drag them. Yeah. This is again like this is well directed. This is very well edited. Like this is a great sequence. Like it builds the tension of them trying to catch up to the train and lasso the train and get all together. And just as like they're about to pull off with like Phil being really upset.
So it's just to set it up. So they've taken wire from a fence, from like country, like farmland fence. Dorman has run up behind the speeding train and somehow lassoed like perfectly knots.
And then he walks back to the car.
And they've attached it to the car, and because their car is out of gas, they're thinking that the train is going to pull them along, and somehow not just whip them and kill them. I mean, it's comedy at this point, so whatever. But yeah, so they're gonna hitch a ride by getting towing Phil's car to a speeding train. Yeah,
and of course the train just rips off the front body of the car.
The front bumper. And
this is a great. It's really well edited and shot, and like plays with your expectations, and it's well scored. It's a great sequence.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this was what really woke me up again. Even though it was a few weeks ago when we watched that batch of movies, this is the one that really woke me up and going, oh, we're in another class of movie now. We're in a class of movie where there's a scene with a great stunt, and you're exactly right. It's well built in the tension. I made the exact same note about the score being excellent. It's Alan Silvestri so that shouldn't surprise people who know Alan Silvestri. He did Back to the Future, Forrest Gump. He scored Avengers. As I was looking it up, it's the Super Mario Brothers movie, one of the great bad early movies of the 90s. And I'll talk about it a little more. I'm not sure how well every piece of the score and piece of music fit the tone of the film, but overall the score is fantastic, and it really increases the quality on a lot of already great scenes. And that moment at the end where the train rips the bumper off, it absolutely did make me laugh out loud because it totally had my expectations subverted.
Well, especially too because they play with they have kind of the oh shit moment of like, oh, how are we going to stop? They have that oh shit moment, and then immediately like you don't have to worry about it because you're not going to get going to begin with.
Just nothing happens.
And then so they push the car into kind of a dead ghost town. They have to spend the night because the guy can't do the body job till the next morning. They say, you better hurry. Dairy Queen closes at 8, but the next shot they're at a Sonic's. So what's that about?
That's that might have been who knows, maybe that was a filming like gaffe, as they had a DQ all set up, and then, but that doesn't make sense because the whole thing is that they're sitting in their car, and that when they see these girls, it's because they're all hanging out in their cars.
But they're not the Groovers aren't in their car. I think the car is at the
I know, but I'm saying the way the scene is staged, like they notice and they end up hang out with these other they hang out with these other girls and who they see because those girls are eating in their car because Sonic is a drive-in place. and that's why they end up in the next scene cruising with these girls. So yeah, I think maybe the DQ line was like, I have no explanation as to why they didn't just say Sonic. Maybe they didn't have I would say they didn't have the rights to say Sonic, but you see visually that they're at a Sonic. So exactly. I don't know what's going on there.
So then they hook up with these girls. They're going around. The girls decide they want to fire off some fireworks, some Roman candles. They go to the cemetery and they just start, playing Roman candle tag, which is like a classic. Like that's you and best. I did
that not too long ago.
Not in high school. I did it in high school, but I also did it when I'm 32.
32-year-old men. We weren't in a cemetery. We were in your parents' lot in their orchard. But everybody likes a good Roman candle fight. I just watched a pro wrestling match in AEW where Matt Hardy fired Roman candles at his opponent. So
that's innovation. That's wrestling innovation. And then of course Kenneth and Gardner Barnes are running away, and they trip over.
This is a great button on the scene.
They trip over a fresh grave, and they look at it, and it's a guy who's just been brought back from Vietnam, and they kind of look up at the sky, and like the Roman candles just basically look. It's a graveyard lit up by bombing, by explosions. A little heavy-handed on the foreshadowing, but I thought it was done well. I like it.
I thought it was a good button to start to get in. This was kind of the first dive into.
Gardner wants to leave. Gardner's not going to get drafted.
And that both of them have deep fears about what's coming up. And we've already established that there's a certain pride that Phil takes in it. So we see now there's a division between there's a proximity between Gardner and Kenneth, and a division between them and Phil. They feel very differently. And I thought just maybe a little heavy-handed plot-wise, and the shot could have been a little more subtle. But I will say, so what they clearly did is, in terms of the sound mixing, they upped the sound of the Roman candles so that they didn't just all of a sudden go non-diegetic sound where it's the actual sound of explosions, but it gets a little louder in the way they stage the shot. You clearly visually get the idea of them and their deep fears about Vietnam. So a little heavy-handed plot-wise, but I thought a good button. I didn't see this going. I thought this was just going to be, this is our first stop on our road trip movie. We met some girls. We had some fun. But a good way to, this scene mattered. And it told me a lot about these characters by the end.
Totally. And
I just want to note, one of the girls, I think it's the girl who has more dialogue.
The one with the gum,
The one with the gum. That is Elizabeth, a.k.a. E.G. Daly. And do you know what other famous voice work E.G. Daly has done?
Was she Rugrats?
She was Tommy Pickles on Rugrats. So I didn't think when we started this, we'd get to have a connection from Kevin Costner to Rugrats. But there you go.
I looked her up. I love looking up those people what else did they do? I'm like, they have 200 acting credits. And there's they did a lot, it turns out.
She's done a bunch of acting credits and voice credits.
And she's great in it. She's perfect.
She was on Powerpuff Girls. She was on all that kind of Nickelodeon's Nicktoons stuff. So there you go.
So the Gruber gang then just kind of camp out that night by the barn that is allegedly where they filmed Giant. Though I don't know that it is. We hear Phil kind of going, I'm proud to be serving my country. I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it, ain't you, Philip? To serving my country? Yeah, I am. There are other countries. What? There's Canada.
To which, again, really good writing, where Phil's like,
"You are the most irresponsible person I have ever met." Well, somebody had to be.
"You are the most irresponsible person I've ever met." Well, somebody had to be.
I just think that's a great line. That's a great line. That's a great line. I want to use that line next time someone says that.
And then we go into the next really bad dream sequence. This one's even worse than the other one.
Even worse. This one is so I've recently been playing. I borrowed my brother's Nintendo Switch. I've been playing Super Mario Odyssey, and I was in the second level is this desert, and I basically just thought of this ridiculous because it just looks so cartoonish. There's these pyramid-shaped sand dunes in the back, and I'm like, am I playing Super Mario all of a sudden? What is going on here? They're flying a kite at night.
Yeah, they're wearing denim cut-off shorts, no shirt.
Cut-off. That's the weirdest part. Why are they? They're never nudes. They're Tobias never nudes.
And Kevin has like, at first I was like, where'd this mullet come from? But I think it is the same hair he has had the whole movie, but it's just like coiffed and styled and conditioned to just look like a really bad mullet. And like there's a really bad synth soundtrack going. So there's Alan Silvestri not doing his best.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with these. But this one's the worst.
I literally just called it in my notes: bad dream denim mullet kite sequence with synthesizers. And it's just so we get. He leaves the girl, that's what happens. And he walks away from
another one of these. No. Yeah. I wrote that these scenes are somehow a little too abstract and a little too contrived and on the nose for me. So I don't know how that works, but they were both of these things.
Yeah. So that sucked. In the morning, Phil is like had it. He's so mad at Gardner Barnes. He's complaining about the trip, saying nobody cares about your stupid epic adventure. Again, Gardner Barnes liked this line. We came here to forget about stuff. Why won't you let us? Nothing wrong with going nowhere, son. It's the privilege of youth.
Yeah, those are great lines.
And Gardner Barnes calling his buddy son. I just love it. And no problem with going nowhere, son. And then they're driving. The car's fixed. Phil continues to kind of have his blowout, just saying you're swine. You're all cowards. And then Kenneth has a big blowout of just shut up. Nobody likes you. You complain all the time. Like, if you don't like us, why did you live with us for 4 years?
He gets really cutting here. He says, we never liked you. We just felt sorry for you. So it's a real like.
He also says, if you can't shut up, go kill yourself.
Yeah. Yes. He does say that.
Yeah. He does say that. So they're pretty mean to old Philip here.
And I was like, well, maybe we'll move. We'll have this come back around where we find out that he mentions, that he did try that. But no, it's just like that one. I was like, oh, we didn't really need to throw in that like gratuitous line, because that was one where I went, well, that makes me really dislike Gardner here. That was way over.
Well, Gardner doesn't say that. Kenneth says that.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Kenneth.
Kenneth says, if you can't shut up, go kill yourself. And then Gardner hops in the back. He's driving and he hops in the back of the car to separate them. And again, another great line. First, he calls him a weenie, Phil a weenie, and says,
and now look at you. Anxious to run off and get yourself martyred, hoping somebody's going to love you for it? You're pathetic, Philip. I don't know how else to say it. You're just pathetic.
Which I think is, again, like that's the perfect description of the people hoping to go to Vietnam and wanting to die for your country. It's a very clear dissection of that's pointless. I'm not even anti-war. I'm just anti-going to die for nothing.
Yeah. And again, that's the script is coming through real strong here. The problem with this scene, and I don't think he's a terrible actor, but Judd Nelson is
very
not up to this character, at least at this point. And these scenes really show it, especially when you have Costner, who's just so masterful already. And I think that's what's so interesting. He's so masterful on how to hold his energy, how to bring it back because you can see Costner is like, I'm not going to turn this scene into two people screaming at each other, which is like the problem that every young actor has. Like we both did that. Like this is an intense scene, so I'm gonna stomp. I'm gonna hit something. Yeah. I'm gonna yell.
This is gonna be my Stella scene,
Exactly. Yeah. And Kevin is actually just already so beautifully playing the opposites, and he's continuing to actually think well about what this character wants in this moment, which is I don't even want to be in this conversation. I'll tell you what I think. But I'm not going to be Kenneth. I'm not even here to
I don't want to blow up because I want to go on a great groover adventure, right? That's what he wants.
I'm here to forget things.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that leads Phil to kind of protest. I'm not a weenie. I'll take anyone on. I'll do anything. I'm not a weenie. And of course, they drive right by a sign that says skydiving ranch. Come skydive.
Skydiving lessons. School.
And then we get the short film that Kevin Reynolds made in 1980 just shoehorned right into this movie.
Yep. Just sticking it right in.
Remember that short film that I got paid money to expand. Well, here it is.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have much to do with the rest of the movie you just watched, but we're going to do it.
It is, as we'll see, it is a good way to, it does function well in the plot to from this scene to where they need to get to in their relationship after.
It does.
But it is a very, and I will say also, this is a road trip movie. It's about making stops along the way. It's about meeting characters for a bit, and they do find a way of to bring Marvin back in at the end. One last thing I'll say just about the scenes driving here is Costner driving with the one-armed sunglasses and the tux. It gave me real 3,000 miles to Graceland vibes, which we'll talk about much later. But I just kept thinking about that movie as he's driving with this.
Yeah, that's the next road trip movie that he.
That's
that
right.
He does. Yeah. So they go to this skydiving ranch, and it does not inspire confidence.
No, it looks like it's been.
If I were Phil, I would just be like, so I'm a weenie, like I'm not jumping. And we meet Truman Sparks, who's played by Marvin, who played Truman in the
original short film
in Proof. And Glenn Headley plays his old lady.
His old lady, yeah. We don't know if they're.
Oh, she ain't my wife. She's just my old lady,
She's just my old lady, yeah. So she's great.
She is
particularly
great.
As this goes on, she's super funny, super dry, makes a ridiculous, cliched moment actually very funny later in the end of this scene.
And so we get kind of the sense that Marvin. No, Truman. Damn it. Truman Sparks, played by Marvin McIntyre, is kind of this burnout hippie, maybe ex-Vietnam pilot, who runs a really lackluster skydiving school. Gardner kind of wheels and deals them, sweet talks them, saying that they're adventure tourism journalists. Can we get a skydiving?
Yeah.
This guy wants to write on it. Yeah, he's going to write on it. It's going to give you lots of publicity. Phil agrees to do it, but only if Gardner and Kenneth promise not to dodge the draft to Mexico.
Just Kenneth, I believe. He just makes Kenneth swear. I think I could be misinterpreting that scene, but it looked in that scene like he specifically talking to Kenneth and saying, as long as, because he says, you can't dodge with him. You can't dodge like he's going to dodge. Right. So I think he knows, first of all, I don't think as a guy who takes his service somewhat seriously, he probably doesn't want a guy like Gardner there. But he also knows this is a hopeless case. I'm never going to convince that.
Right.
But because they are friends and he does know his friend Kenneth, he knows that Kenneth is on the fence. And so he's trying to get him back over to the side to fulfill, quote unquote, what he perceives as Kenneth's duty.
Right. And then we get kind of it should be more of a montage than it is. I think this is my biggest problem with this part of the movie. It's it's 25 minutes long, this entire sequence, which is a lot of the movie. It's an hour and a half long movie, and 25 minutes of it is in this sequence. It should have been Truman is trying to, give him the lesson, teach him how to do the skydiving thing. There's some funny moments, like the chalkboard, him drawing the diagram, you're going to hop out here, and then you're going to go into a forward fold, and then you're and if you do that, you'll already be dead, so don't do that.
You're going to end up here, but you don't want to end up here, so go back over here.
And then you'll be down here, and you'll be looking up here for the WDI indicator. And you're also going to check for May West, and if that's not there, then you need to check here for 4 panels and a hole. Then when you come down, you're going to find the piece, and you're going to land over here, and you're going to get in this position, except you don't want to do that because that means you're in trouble. So what you want to do is you want to get right here, and then you're going to come around here, and you're going to fold up, and you're going to do a toggle and jettison, and always watch the horizon, okay?
And it's just that you can't tell at all what he's writing. It's just this fat piece of chalk with nothing
and
invisible.
For a guy who I don't think had done anything but Proof, but this other, he's a funny comedic actor. He has too much screen time. He can't sustain that amount. I think they're Proof was good. It got Steven Spielberg to make this movie. We should just do that. And it doesn't fit in this movie. What we've seen so far is not as hijinky and kind of slapsticky comedy as this whole sequence is.
Exactly. So there's it does feel out of place. I'll say that it's easy when you're a goofy character to give a tight performance as a goofy character. But I do think Marvin gives he probably gives the tightest performance next to Costner.
Yeah.
Of anybody in the movie, and he is legitimately funny through a very like hijinksy sequence.
Yeah, and it's not his fault he wasn't edited down. He should have just been edited.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, like he gave
I'll take all the screen time I want, even if it doesn't fit with a movie. If I'm in a movie,
he gave what he gave, and he should have just been shooped. And then so they go up. They're Phil looking terrible, does not want to do this
in a plane that looks like it truly should not be.
He duct tapes the wing back together.
There's a chicken living in it. That was pretty funny.
I like
he opens the door by just taking the door off the hinge.
Yeah,
it's like, we don't need that anyway. You're jumping out.
He it's clearly spray painted. I like looks fast, Truman. It's the stripes.
It's the stripes. That's the first long before the joke of speed holes on The Simpsons.
Right. Yeah. And then as they're up in the plane, we hear from I can't remember his old lady's name, but Glenn Headley character kind of comes out. She's been like doing chores this whole time. I don't know if we get a
name for her actually.
I think she's
been doing her laundry.
Yeah, she's been doing her
laundry as they've been packing the parachute and stuff, which you should see a mile away.
Obviously. Yeah, exactly. This is a gag that is like not a great one, but
this is like Tired on Cartoons. The gag of that's not a parachute, that's my laundry, and it's actually what they do.
So she comes out and goes, "Oh, which one of you took my laundry instead of a parachute?" And we're like, "Well, it's the only guy with a parachute." So they start freaking out, trying to like figure out how to let Phil know that he doesn't have a parachute. He has laundry.
He does have his emergency.
He has the emergency.
As they say, there's no way, which they do tell this well in the training scenes. They're like, there's no way he's going to remember the emergency procedures because he's scared out of his mind just to do this at all.
Yeah.
So if he jumps, there's like a 90% chance that he's gonna die, and so they're like, we got to get him off, but they don't have a radio in the plane, so there's no way to like let them know, even though he does have a walkie-talkie that goes into Phil's helmet, but they don't have a radio on the plane.
Yeah.
So they can't reach him from the
Yeah, and so they take the laundry, they start trying to write him a message like it's a no-go, don't jump. But then Glenn Headley was like, "Oh, what did you do? You ruined my laundry," and she like starts kicking the laundry, and it spells "go on" instead of "no go."
Because she pulls one piece of laundry from the no into a G, and then they're upside down, so it looks like "on," which actually that was kind of clever. Or the way that she just does it so casually, and she's just like yanking her laundry back, and they don't notice it yet. That was kind of
and so he jumps. He feels like he's gonna die, and then he does eventually in the end. Again, like not poorly directed. Remember, the emergency shoot, good tension built. He kind of pulls it at the last minute. They all celebrate. It's a great Groover miracle.
And they are doing just before this one. He's hanging off the wing of the plane. They do have some long. Clearly, Judd Nelson is just like on a sound set somewhere, on a close set somewhere. But they do have some backup shots that they clearly did do a stunt with a guy in a parachute hanging off a plane. So again, I was just thinking like there are some really well directed stunts in here. Kevin Reynolds knows how to do this really well.
Yeah. He pulls it. They have a big, celebration. He's not dead. They got a new respect for their boy Phil. He's no weenie.
Yeah.
And
and all the things they said to each other, the rift, the tension, of course, they all want to forget about that now because they realize that they almost lost their friend.
Yeah. Exactly. So they take a good picture and he keeps it and it's all good. Moving on. They arrive at Chattariga Ortega, which I guess is a place where the donkey lady lived. And then they're like, let's go see the donkey lady. They're like, let's go get diseases. This spot that they had been earlier on their last pilgrimage with Dom.
A bar that they had gone to.
Yeah. And it's now closed. Again, a good line from Kenneth, who's like,
remember when you were 16, 17, looking ahead? Now you knew the next couple of years, they'd be great. Just knew it. I don't feel that way no more.
Which, like, perfect. Like, that's a poignant, that is like the getting older of like, oh yeah, I can't wait for this. This will be awesome. Like, you stop having things to look forward to as like clear benchmarks.
Yeah.
And, he Kenneth urges Gardner, come with us. Don't go across the border to Mexico, which is clearly what this whole trip to go get Dom has really been about. Costner's just going to keep going to Mexico.
Anyway, you know me. Gotta roam. Got a bird dog, gotta cross females and fences, and if you'd all just come with me, you'd see.
If you all came with me, you'd see. He's just so good. He's so good. Yeah. You get a real sense of like, he is scared. He doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
We can keep the good times rolling, guys. And anytime somebody uses the word bird dog, I love it. That's my favorite.
I guarantee. I'm sure Roy McAvoy uses that in Tin Cup. He's got.
He's he's a bird dogger for sure.
Again, we see, as we've noted, there is good script and dialogue that Costner's working in here, but it's not just any actor can be handed some good dialogue, but just the way that he plays the opposites, the way that you can feel the subtext without him hitting you over the head.
Yeah.
His fear, his trepidation, the fact that he doesn't push crazy hard for his friends to come with him, but that he actually desperately does want that.
Exactly.
It just speaks to just how Kevin Costner, even at this early stage, even as a young guy, having only had some supporting roles, and I'm sure he did student films and things like that, but is just already just a real master of acting for film, of acting both for the camera and for understanding his character and embodying a real authentic person who's still goofy and off the wall and is, I think this is what's so cool about Costner. Like we've talked about him as he's America's dad, but he can embody these larger than life characters. Like Roy Dotrice is a larger than life character. I would say Gardner Barnes is this larger than life character, but you still identify with him. And so Costner's able to play that line, which is incredibly hard to do. And I think that's what we see already makes him a star.
Yeah. And next we see them. They're at the Mexican border. There's a big rock that's got chalk on it that says Dom, and they got a shovel and they start digging up Dom. And lo and behold, it's a bottle of Dom Perignon. Oh, who saw that coming? Not me. I was like a little bit like, they're gonna dig up a body. Like I wanted to see that movie. Maybe let's just like dig up the body of the friend that died on the last road trip. Like,
exactly. Or I kind of figured it was some kind of time capsule or something like that, or Dom was like just an old radio or something that they had together. But but a good way to kind of cap essentially the core journey of the movie off here is they all take a drink of this champagne. I love they just, Lester's of course passed out on a rock, so Gardner just pours it over his face.
That's my only thing. Like at first I liked this Lester thing, and then I was like, this is dumb. Like there's been days. This guy is not still, like passed out, and like.
You're not wrong. I loved Lester. I thought it was great that he's just there, and that they even remember in this moment to just pour a little onto him. But you're not wrong.
In the middle of the desert, climbing over a canyon. They're not dragging this fucking dweeb. Like no friend. No friend. Like
Dorman's a big dude.
We've been pretty hungover together, and I don't think either of us was like, no, it's okay. I'll take care of him. He's my baby boy. Like it's not.
We didn't have a big. We never had a big Dorman with us. A quiet seminary, good-hearted boy that could heave us over.
Sling you over his shoulder.
And
then they cheers to us and who we were and who we will be, and they chuck the ball.
Costner says again to the privileges of youth, which is of course a refrain that he said before, and then he chucks the bottle. I was like, I thought you guys would.
Yeah, they each take one swig.
Just a ceremonial, just a ritual thing. One swig, and then he chucks the bottle.
Here's to us, by God, to us, and that, and privileges of youth. Here's to us. And what we were. And what will be. And what will be.
Yeah. And then Kenneth breaks down crying. He's He's upset about Debbie. He's made the biggest mistake of his life. He should have married her, but he ran away. And this melts old Gardner Barnes' heart.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, we got to have the wedding. We'll get you ready for the wedding. I think the wedding's supposed to be in like a day. And they're like, are we going to go? We'll never make it back to Dallas. He's like, no, we couldn't go back to Dallas because her parents would kill Kenneth. We got to fly her to where we are.
Yeah.
And
so almost like kind of we're at the end of The Hangover here, where it's like we got to race back across the country to get to make this wedding real quick. This band of this motley crew of gentlemen. And of course we got to fly her back. So who can we get? Who do we know
had the plane?
Who's the only one to get him there fast enough? Good old Truman is back. Flying, and again, probably the most expensive stunts of the whole movie here. They have this rickety old plane flying through what was actually I think Oklahoma was where they actually
but like right down on the highway, like really.
It gets down on the highway. They have a helicopter chasing. We never find out why the helicopter chasing just somehow loses the plane.
Yeah, how he loses them, and
which then goes back across the country.
This is also, I'd say too, like we can edit. We get it. It's like it's Truman and his hijinks, but there's just like a few more shots of this than I needed to tell the story
this long.
But it kind of goes back and forth that we see Phil and Gardner, and they start like opening up just like a folding table in the middle of like
found in a dumpster
in a park, and there's old men on the bench going, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, we're having a wedding here." And then very slowly they pretend like they're having a wedding, but like, "Oh no, the caterer canceled. Oh no, the band canceled." And these old men from the town, basically the whole town gathers around to save this wedding.
It's the stone soup thing where they're just makeshifting. All of a sudden, everything comes together from this community coming together. The butcher is nearby, so he clearly is going to make the meat. The mayor has got lights and tables for
one of them owns a bar, so we can bring some beer and.
Yeah, exactly. So they are able to put this, basically just talk their way into this town, throwing them the wedding.
And Lester wakes up.
And Lester does wake up at this point. Yeah, he's back in action. So he's back
in action for a little screen time. And then lo and behold, we see who is getting off the plane, who Truman has delivered. Her name is Debbie.
Her name. Yeah.
We knew her name, but we didn't know her face. And now we see it's the girl that Kevin Costner has been pining over this whole movie. His best friend is going to marry the girl he loves that he let get away.
His ex that he's clearly, from our denim cut off flashback scenes, he is clearly still pining after.
He's not over it. He's not over
with her.
And
that's who Kenneth is with. That's who Debbie is.
Yeah. And then, I think he says when he sees her, "Don't I know you?" And she says, "Well, you used to." And they kind of have a little look, and, she thanks him for organizing all this. He's pulled the wedding together. Again, he's a little gooey boy on the inside.
Yeah.
His cool demeanor.
I thought that was a good reveal.
But this is,
twist.
It was, I didn't see it coming, but I'm dumb.
Yeah, me neither.
Hallie did.
I thought I missed something. I'm like, did we know this? But no, that was a reveal.
Hallie, for you listening at home, folks, my partner, she saw this coming a mile away. So she's much smarter than me and Adam.
Your soon-to-be ex-fiance, currently fiance.
Yeah, my current fiance. Well,
until I take you on a trip.
Our wedding was canceled.
That's true.
But that's just because of COVID-19.
Yeah. And hopefully there's no draft, but we
just need Truman to pick us up and drive us out to the Mexican border, and we'll get married in that town. There's no regulations down there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then they have the wedding, they get married. It's all lovely. And Gardner has
Gardner shares a final dance with Debbie, and
which dance, Adam?
The Fandango.
Oh, the Fandango.
Calls for a Fandango, and they do this really well choreographed and well danced by both of them routine together. And it's kind of like I guess the idea is it's supposed to go back and forth between flashbacks, because it's during the wedding, but then also no one's there. So I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be like they danced again.
Yeah, it was a little bit of
it was like
poeticism there.
I think is the idea. Like no one.
He almost kisses her. They almost kiss.
Yeah. And she has a moment, and then she shakes her a little on the nose.
I don't know. Like, if I was Kenneth,
I'd be married. Like, your best friend. This is after the wedding. This isn't when I got off the plane. Your last chance was 3 hours ago, dude.
Yeah. Like, Kenneth knows that they had a thing, so why is he cool with this? I don't know.
Yeah. He's secure in his relationship, I guess. Which
I guess he's because he should be
girl, like days before this.
Yeah.
So it's and then we see Kenneth getting into Phil's car. Phil says it's yours, gives him the car as a gift. They drive off
into the sunset.
Into the sunset. Kenneth is asking where's Gardner, but he's not there. As
he's disappeared.
The hubbub of them leaving. So they're standing there with Lester, Phil, and Dorman.
He didn't even say goodbye.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Gardner didn't say goodbye. I wouldn't have assumed already at that point, like, he's gone. I mean, he was, but
he didn't even go look for him. He's like no,
he could just be somewhere else. Lester basically just turns and has one of his only lines in the movie, which was, "It's been real. Look me up. I'm Lester, blah, 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 in Dallas." Has a hitchhiking sign ready to go to anywhere. Phil says, which is, I'm glad that they didn't actually end on this because this was pretty contrived, said, Gardner never said goodbye. And Dorman says, "I won't either." And then walks away. That was not good. So I'm glad that they actually they immediately undo that by Phil going, "No, I don't want to end like that." And then they go and have a handshake and actually say goodbye, friend.
Yeah. Have a nice life. And then we get the shot of Kevin just watching from the hill.
Yeah. Watching them close down the wedding from up on the mountain. He salutes them with the beer, and that's our button. That's our ending.
And that's
moment.
our movie.
That's Fandango.
Pretty good movie. I liked it.
It's a solid. I don't think you can say anything less than it's a solid movie. It is absolutely a solid movie. I don't know that it deserved. Steven Spielberg essentially cutting the legs out from it certainly killed this movie, and I don't think it. Although as I said, I think I understand the rough edges of this. Maybe not up to a 1985 Steven Spielberg class,
but it doesn't need to be. Like, he's just producing it, and
he has produced some stinkers. He's not a perfect track record as a producer. I
think it was unfair. Like, I think
he produced Jurassic Park 3. So
I think this movie could have been a hit. I truly do.
I agree, especially thinking 1985. We're looking at some of the age on it, but you wouldn't have seen that at the time.
This era with John Hughes and everything, it's very big for like high school movies. I guess there's not a lot of like college age movies, but I don't know. Like, it's a great road trip, fun movie. It's watching it now. Yeah, some of it's a little tired because the genre has been played out, but I don't know how played out it was at this point.
No, and if you think about the 80s, then you're looking at so you've got the self-reflective group in high school with The Breakfast Club. You've got this with graduates of college. Then you've got The Big Chill, which is people a little further on, like in their adult life. So this kind of occupies that space in the middle. And no, there were college movies during the 80s, and I mean, you think of like. It's a totally different movie, but you've got movies like Animal House and stuff in the 70s. And so I agree. I totally think this could have been a hit. I think it's a shame that it basically got shown to no one. And I think it holds up really well. And I think it's a real shame that its release and distribution just got cut out from under it. Luckily, of course, Kevin Costner would be fine as an actor. And so I would say, I think that although America didn't get to necessarily meet Kevin Costner through this role, I think Hollywood did. Yeah. And I'm sure I'm sure Spielberg, I can imagine, didn't look at this and think that Costner was the problem.
And also Kevin Reynolds was also fine. Like, he went on he has later failings that, his career doesn't go maybe as he hoped, but he has successes after this where he is a well-regarded Hollywood director who can be given big budgets to make a good movie.
Absolutely. I mean, at the time, which we'll talk about later, Waterworld was the most expensive movie ever made. Yeah. The most expensive by far movie ever made. So he was trusted by producers still. So it would be really interesting to find out more about what exactly Spielberg felt so nonplussed about this movie. But I think that it absolutely would have been a hit.
All right. We'll move on to best review, worst review, where we go over. We didn't do this last time, but we're going to be doing it as best we can throughout each episode to find out what people at the time thought of this movie. We'll try to find the most generous review and the least generous review. This was tough because the movie was not out for very long, was not reviewed a lot of places.
Yep.
But two of the big ones, New York Times and LA Times, both reviewed this. So here's the best review I could find from Janet Maslin of the New York Times. She says, Kevin Reynolds, who wrote and directed Fandango, is for the most part making just another coming-of-age film. But at its best, his debut feature has an appealing boisterousness, and it successfully walks the fine line between sensitivity and swagger.
I would agree.
I think that's right. And what she says about Costner in the movie is Gardner Barnes, played dashingly by Kevin Costner, who suggests what Tom Cruise of Risky Business might look like after a 6-month bender.
That's a great call.
And I think after having just watched Risky Business lately, I think there's a little bit more darkness, though, in Risky Business than Gardner. Gardner Barnes is a little more hopeful than that.
Even with Vietnam staring him in the face versus just like a fractured relationship with his parents, he's a little more optimistic.
So it's not like a rave review, but I think it's a good, fair depiction of the movie. This one is I'm not going to say it's not a fair review. It's a lot less kind of a review from Kevin Thomas at the LA Times. Said, Fandango means, among other things, a foolish act. Unfortunately, a foolish act succinctly describes the film itself. The film overreaches badly and sinks under a heavy weight of symbolism, bathos, and sheer preposterousness that no amount of humor and incident can redeem.
Bathos? What is bathos?
I had to look up bathos, and
I'm looking it up right now.
It is basically a failed attempt at pathos. Pathos or pathos meaning successfully inspiring an emotional response.
Yeah.
Bathos is the failed attempt at that. So,
all right.
I mean, I think that's a little crueler than I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's overreaching a little bit because I wouldn't sum that movie up quite so glibly. But I mean, I think that the critiques of it are there. That's fair.
They're the same critiques the other one that Janet had.
Yeah,
it's just a little kinder.
And it sunk the movie.
But again, here is Kevin Thomas on Kevin Costner. Reynolds' key actors are talented enough and young enough to survive this debacle. In his first starring role, Costner, who has a classic presence, is a genuine discovery. And I think
that's very prescient. That's exactly what he was. And
what you just said, that Kevin Costner survived that this movie was a flop. He got his first.
Yeah, exactly. That his first big leading role.
If you think about it, that's kind of 2 for 2. You know, he's got The Big Chill, where he's edited out of, the rug pulled out from underneath his feet. And then he's got this, and again, the rug pulled out from underneath his feet.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that actually can't be overstated. His resilience to what would have been 2 real, like, devastating moments early in his career. We talked about that that his response to Big Chill was just very mature, and just said, hey, I did that movie. I was in that movie. Whatever happens on the cutting room floor happens, and I'm proud of what I did and happy that I did it. I think for especially young actors, that would be incredibly devastating. I know for me that would be, if to finally land those roles, one to get completely cut out of the movie, and the other to have the movie get cut basically from distribution. I know this might sound too simplistic, but you can't become a star unless you can weather those punches, because the acting industry will deliver you much more heartache than it ever will gratification. And I think that goes even for basically the big stars.
And what happens later in his career? Like, he gets knocked down to the bottom rung. He gets pretty close to persona non grata, not in any action of his, but just, he starts out being a big money maker, A-list celebrity to
the box office guarantee and
to box office poison very quickly. Within a couple of years. And it takes him a while to weather that storm, but he does weather it.
Yeah. And so I think that just goes back to why it's such an interesting career, and why just as a person, I'm just so like drawn to him, because he weathers those storms. He's continued to hone his craft. And from, not that we're getting too deep into him as a person, but he's a person that appears, I don't know. We haven't talked to him on the podcast yet, so I don't know him personally, but from what I know about him and his politics and his personal life, he's a man that lives with a lot of integrity. And I think that shows with the fact that that's part of who he is as a person, is why he was, he's able to be such a great artist and able to weather a very unforgiving industry and a very unforgiving place in Hollywood.
Yeah. And Kevin, if you're out there and you're not a man of integrity, you're welcome to come on the show and
prove us wrong. Yeah, exactly. the invitation.
It's like, hey, I got a bone to pick. I'm a real piece of shit, and you guys are portraying me something I'm not. Take your integrity and shove it.
Cam, who would you say, or let me ask it this way: is Costner the MVP of this film, or would you say someone else is the MVP?
I think beyond a doubt he's the MVP. The only other candidate I think possibly in the running is Kevin Reynolds, because it's not a bad debut. He did write it, he did direct it, and it's the beginning of a promising career. The cinematography is also pretty good, and the editing is also
really solid,
very solid. So Steven Semmel, that was the editor, and Thomas Del Ruth was the cinematographer, who also did Stand By Me and The Breakfast Club and The Mighty Ducks. So that guy goes on to a great
coming
career.
Back at us after we talked about him last time. Lane Smith.
Yeah, you're right. So I would say he's for sure. Again, I think for a while, maybe this will change next month when we do Silverado, where he's again more of a bit player in a bigger ensemble, but he's the lead. He takes the ball and runs with a big responsibility that he doesn't really have a lot of experience doing before this. And he hits the ground running.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly right. I think it can't be overstated how, anybody can watch a movie and go, I can do that. And frankly, many of us as actors can say, well, I'm a good actor. I could do that. But it is an immense Herculean challenge to carry a film and to carry a road trip film that has a ton of moving parts, to both do it in terms with this character is so well rounded. It's so well acted. The performance is so great. But the acting, characterization, those interiors, that's not all it takes to carry a movie. And so I would say it is Kevin Costner as well. I agree. I'd say Kevin Reynolds comes in a close second, because it is a great script. It is really well directed. And I don't think the weaknesses are so glaring that it turns the movie off for me, or even like sinks it by a full letter grade. But without a Kevin Costner there, and I think a role that I can't picture, because Kevin Costner has that fun, weird goofiness, lightness. He plays a likable dirtbag. Yeah. I don't know many other leading men who could have Kevined and done the same thing. So in terms of who could have Kevined, an interesting note is in the original student film Proof, Kevin could have Kevined, because Kevin Costner went out and auditioned for the role of Gardner in the short film and did not get it. Lost the audition. And he did not book the gig.
He's better than the guy in Proof. I'll tell you that for free. Because he's really playing at like, how do I be a smooth talking Texan? That other guy. I don't want to like harp on him. It's a student film. I don't think they're real actors. But I think Kevin Reynolds has said about auditioning Kevin Costner is like, I remembered him that he had auditioned for me, 4 years earlier. And it was great to see a guy 4 years later who's just has filled out, has come into his own, who's not like some rookie anymore, who's got some
got his reps in. Yeah. He's got chops. He's been working. And again, that goes back to speaking to, part of the reason why he's a big star is this was a guy that didn't let disappointment or rejection take him down. And he just kept honing his craft. He kept going out and treating the work like his work and not letting it sink him. So
yeah,
there you go.
Totally. Where does this fit on your power rankings? So we left off. Testament was the strong favorite.
Yeah,
the top.
We put that ahead of Big Chill. Yeah, I think this easily moves into number one.
I think so too. Yeah.
Both for Costner's performance and just like as a film, I would say like, yeah, if I had to go, what makes a movie like watchable versus good, and sometimes they're the same thing and sometimes they're different. I would throw this on more than Testament. Not that doesn't speak to Testament's quality. No. But just in terms of the type of movies that I like, it's not just because it's fun and Testament is depressing. But I think this is just in terms of like a Hollywood hit. I agree. I think this would have been a hit.
Yeah, I think Testament is the more impactful film. I don't need to watch that ever again. I got it. I got it on that first watch. And
it's like Requiem for a Dream. I'm like, I saw that once. I'm good to never see that again.
And watching that, I've watched this movie now like 2.5 times in the last month, and like I really liked it on the second watch. I liked it. Just found myself really enjoying it, really enjoying the group, their dynamics. Yeah, I have no problem moving this into number one.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that we're seeing here with Kevin Costner's first time essentially anchoring the screen time of a movie. He does not swing and miss. Steven Spielberg might not have been the biggest fan of this movie, but whether anyone saw it or not, it was clear from this point on that Kevin Costner is a star, not just because of good looks, not just because of general charm, but because he's got real acting chops to back it up. And they're there right away. There's very few rough edges in his performance. And we'll see from here now as he goes into next month, the ensemble Western of Silverado, how he continues to take shape as an actor.
Yeah. He, next month, tune in. We're doing Lawrence Kasdan's Silverado. For those who remember, Lawrence Kasdan was the director of The Big Chill. So there's some history there already that they worked together. I'm really excited to watch that Western.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to talk Silverado next month. And Cam, it was great talking Fandango as we were talking Costner together today.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Talkin Costner. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
We're talking Costner. Tin Cup to Silverado, talking Costner. Bodyguard and Fandango, Robin Hood is making the rich pay. Going off the board on draft day, talking swing low. Wyatt Earp and JFK.